Well, welcome everybody to Mark Bajerski YouTube channel. I think I'm on a roll at the moment because my energy is high. So content is given freely. I hope you appreciate that. What I've learned as a healer over 2 decades, and also worked with thousands of people one-to-one as a psychic, even though I don't particularly like saying that word, but try and help people find their spiritual path, their balance, find, I don't know, their purpose, I guess. Not always successful because some people don't want to hear it. Some people are too lazy, and some people fear their path. And more often than not, most people hijack their own spiritual journey because of this. So welcome. Yeah, my name's Mark Bajerski, and today we're going to talk, well, it's fitting, isn't it? It's Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to everybody out there, to those who are blessed enough to be able to spend their whole life with their child. And I was, China Bajerski. I spent my whole life with her thus far till she got to 18. And those fathers who never actually got to see their children at all, hardly. And that's me as well, Nico Bajerski. I very rarely saw Nico. Me and his mum split up 3 months after having him, and I know how that feels. Also, as a psychic reader, many people come to you when they're at their worst. No psychologist can help them, no doctor can help them, no drugs can help them. And then they reach out for the spiritual. Really, they should have reached out for the spiritual first of all. So they come and you start to heal them by giving them understandings that they may not have seen, and the doctor hasn't got a clue. Obviously, the doctor hasn't got a clue of psychology in the sense of spiritual meaning and understanding, seeing their path and seeing, you know, I'm sorry, I'm not big into psychology, although it does help. Sometimes I also think it absolutely messes people up even more. But that's just good and bad psychologists, of course, but like good and bad psychics and good and bad healers. So also, yeah, I divert. But anyway, we haven't started yet. We start in 3 minutes. So before we start in 3 minutes, I want to share something with you. Does any of you remember when I made a video about cows? Anybody? I said to you all many years ago, if any of you are still following me, many years ago, I sat down and tried working out how many cows there were in this world. I worked out how many cows were female. I worked out how many babies a female has, how many times in a lifetime a cow would have a calf. Then I worked out how many people ate meat. I worked out how much meat does each person eat in a year, and the figures just didn't add up. And I remember saying to my partner, I've just sent her this video because this has just come out now. And it fascinates me that some people catch up eventually and figure something out. The numbers don't add up. And the numbers don't add up whatsoever, especially when you look at Burger King, McDonald's and all of them. It just doesn't add up. Absolutely doesn't add up. So listen to this guy. By the way, can you hear me? I didn't do a sound check. Okay, yes, yeah, some messages there. Okay, let's have a listen. Right.
So I was curious the other day and found this online. McDonald's sells 6.5 million burgers in one single day. That's 195 million burgers a month. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't see cows lined up around every corner waiting to be turned into patties. I mean, seriously. Do the math. Even if you stretched one cow into a bunch of burgers, you're still talking millions of cows just to keep up every day. So I started asking myself, where are all these cows coming from? Is there some secret super ranch hidden underground? Are they growing cows in labs, cloning meat behind closed doors? People laugh it off, but think, when was the last time you even saw a cow farm big enough to supply this madness? And don't say imported beef, because even globally, the numbers don't add up smooth. And look, I'm not saying it ain't real meat. I'm just asking the question no one wants to. What the hell are we eating? Because if it ain't cows, then what is it? Remember, I'm not insinuating anything. I am simply asking a question.
This is just a theory, not a fact.
Oh, the fucking medical industry is based on...
Just think about that. Anyway, I'm not going to say anymore. You know my feelings. I think there's something extremely sinister. And you ask yourself how many children and people go missing every year. And yeah, it's very dark, but one day it will be revealed. So yeah, okay. It's now 1:15. Welcome everybody. Happy Father's Day. Today we're going to talk about rekindling relationships, friendships, family, or even partners. And we're going to delve into the understanding the very, very complex world of relationships, and whether it's our issue, whether it's their issue. We shall look at all aspects, as I would do if I was sharing this with somebody in a spiritual session. So let's start, shall we? I hope you're all ready for this. Okay, so let's start with two people who grew up together. Let's say they're family. They grew up together in the same household, and throughout their life, they eventually moved out of that house, and then they started their own family, and they stayed in touch with their sister to sister, brother to sister, brother to brother. And throughout that relationship, it was amicable. It was sometimes really nice. Sometimes it was not so good. And then eventually what happened is something triggered somebody. And that one person then was, let's say, not so nice to the other person. So they kind of like, okay, this happens, but now it's happening more regularly. And then finally, there's a final straw. Somebody just kind of stepped over the line and did something that, as far as you are concerned, is impossible to rekindle, impossible to stay friends, family, or whoever it may be. Impossible. What you've just done there has gone beyond forgiveness. What you did there was wrong, and I'm not willing to go through this suffering and this pain because of what you've done. So this kind of relationship, once that happens, there's normally a divide, and it can last for years. It can last for a whole lifetime. At the very end of the lifetime of one or the other, there's normally a lot of guilt and a lot of suffering that happens. So the question is then, did you actually move forward? Did you actually forgive? Did you actually let go? And most of the time that I found as a healer and my clients, that they never actually came to terms with the situation. Because coming to terms with that situation is that if you never see that person again, you're over it. And you're over it mind, body, spirit. Nothing affects you anymore. You know why you made that decision, conscious decision, and you made that conscious decision without any regret. So most of the time that doesn't happen. And then what happens is when the brother or the sister or whoever dies, and you're at an age now, you look back and wish to yourself, you know, could it have been better? Could I have done different? Should I have done different? So these are at least one aspect of the relationship that needs to be looked at here and now. So one of the questions that I would ask you if you have a family member that you don't speak to anymore is this: if they were if you found out that they were dying of cancer, or if you found out you were dying of cancer and you have 5 days to live, would you feel bad not going to see them, or would you feel bad them not coming to see you? If the answer is yes to both them questions, or one of them, then this relationship issue is still an issue and you haven't resolved it. Therefore, with that comes trauma, comes weak immune system, comes mental issues, and a lifetime of suffering. And that's not what you came into this world to do. So you came into this world, in as far as I'm concerned, to suffer, but the suffering should only be a short moment. So pain is inevitable, as the Buddha says, but suffering is optional. Therefore, the suffering, yes, I know I'm going to suffer, but how long? And the question is, why did you suffer and why are you suffering? Suffering is just an energy that is really an energy that is not the word suffering. It's normally an energy that feels wrong, off, bad. Something is trying to tell you, spiritually speaking, that this is wrong. This isn't right. Your consciousness is trying to share a message to you, and your brain picks it up as, unfortunately, you don't listen to your consciousness, but your brain kicks in before you actually really hear what's going on. And your brain then sets it into a box, and that box is guilt, anger, frustration, his fault, or whatever it is. So you have to understand that if you feel bad of a relationship that has just disappeared or finished or ended, and you feel bad about it, then really it hasn't been resolved. It hasn't been resolved, and it needs to be resolved. There are thousands upon thousands, if not millions, of different reasons why we decide to walk away from somebody. And walking away carrying anger, frustration, or why, the question would be, why did they do that, is probably one of the most traumatic energies that will add years onto your life and does no good for you whatsoever. So having said that, now that you know that, you've got to understand that this needs to be resolved. And you have to ask yourself the question, can it be resolved without the shaking of hands or the cuddle and saying, I'm sorry? Because the one thing I have noticed in life in these past 20 years of working with clients that made a conscious decision to try again is that they ended up in more deeper water, because that person that they went to cuddle, you hoped that that person would understand you and now change into the person you want them to be. And in fact, they never change. In fact, they get worse. And now you're wondering why. Now you're getting more angry, you're more frustrated, and now you've got yourself knee deep into more emotional baggage. And thus that person can attack you again, and you start going, what the hell, what? And then here we go again. So this is something that one has to look at, that I would always say, be very careful, because what your dream is and your hope is very rarely ever given, because it doesn't work like that. So really the only, for me, the only way I would move forward in that situation is look at that situation and try and understand that situation so that you don't end up with any suffering, pain. So I look at it like this. If I have many relationships where I've walked away from family, friends and all that, and I've sat down and worked them out to a way that all makes sense. So take, for instance, one situation where I had an issue with a member of family. Okay, I knew who they were, and I accepted them all my life, but there came a point where I can't accept something that was said and done that shouldn't have been done, regardless of why they did it, what they did before they did it to do it. And you think, oh, you shouldn't have done it. None of that. It's like, that doesn't matter. I'm not making excuses for anybody. They're old enough to be sensible. And if they can't be sensible, I'm not interested. So I know that situation over there is never going to change unless that person changes. And the only way that person's going to change is if they come back to me with an energy that is like they've changed. They're not asking forgiveness, but they're saying, you know what? I made a mistake. I understand my mistake. It was wrong. And like, I'm listening and I'm thinking, wow, that they actually mean this. This isn't manipulation, because I know the difference between manipulation and they're only doing that for a certain reason. They haven't changed at all. But, you know, if you can really sincerely hear sincerity in that conversation and they're coming back with kind of open arms, at that point, I would suggest that the other person, whoever it may be, has actually grown, has actually learned through their experience and took responsibility and approached first of all. Now, if somebody's attacked me or if somebody's attacked you, why would you go and try and make up to somebody? What sense does that make? Because the spiritual community tell you to forgive everybody. And I can honestly tell you now, hand on heart, I have seen so many disasters happen when my clients have sat down and said, my sister said some terrible things, hurtful things, and I want to go and make up. And I'm like, but what are you making up? What have you done? What have you done to make up anything? What did you do to hurt your sister? Well, I didn't. So what are you trying to make up then? Because you're not making anything up. All you're doing is stepping back into the fire. You're stepping back into the energy. You're just hoping that they've changed. But in reality, it doesn't happen. So they don't listen to Mark. And I say, do whatever you feel's right. Go for it. But just be aware that this situation really should be a situation where the other person, if they spiritually grow and they've learned their lesson, will come to you and say, look, you know, I messed up. I really messed up and I've missed our relationship. You know, can we move on? Okay, so that's not being selfish. It's not ego. It's not being blind, because you know you haven't done anything wrong. That's if you haven't done anything wrong. If you have done something wrong, you better admit it, or else don't listen to this conversation. If you've done something to provoke somebody that they've said something to you, that's different. This is all about somebody who was like, well, I actually don't know what I did. And, well, you do. You always know what you did, meaning you know why they were triggered with you. And it could be a number of reasons. It could be jealousy. It could be frustration in their life. It could be weakness in their life. It could be alcohol. It could be drugs. It can be many things. But you normally know why they did that. Now, you'll know if you've done something that triggered this, whether you smashed them over the head with a hammer, which is obvious, but you were a bit nasty. You said something not very nice. You did something that's different. I'm talking about a situation where you really couldn't cope with this anymore. It was the last straw. I haven't done anything to hurt you. Why are you doing this to me? I'm almost like an emotional punch bag, and what you said and what you did to me, or you said about me, this is not right and it's not fair. So this is where I am with that. So if you can, I am always open. I'm completely open. And I used to say this to my clients, always be open to the friendship to rekindle if they have healed their past, if they've reconciled with their weakness, if they've understood what they've done and they've spiritually grown because they've seen their weakness or their issues and they've grown from it. Then, of course, My house is open, my door is open, my heart is open, and well done to you for doing this, for changing this. You know, a few weeks ago, my son was here, and my son, I love my son, absolutely love him, like I love my daughter. And my son pointed out something to me that I didn't realize that I did. I had no clue. And it was so beautiful. And it was so painful at the same time. And I didn't realize what I was doing. And he was strong enough and confident enough to say, Dad, I love you, but sometimes you're a bit like this and you do this and I don't know why you do it. And I'm like, shit, I didn't see it. And then I realized, oh, there's a little bit of my dad coming out of me. Like my dad was a bit like that. And, you know, I'm like, and went down, give him a cuddle. I'm sorry. I'll work on myself. And I do to this moment. I work on myself and try and work on that. And thus far, I know I'm doing well because I didn't see it, right? I'm willing to listen. Now, if you've said to your family, look, you know, who you've fallen out with, if you said to them, look, I'm really sorry, but what you did wasn't right. What you said wasn't right. What your actions, that's not right. You need to look at yourself. You need to figure it out. And I don't know why you're doing that, right? If you've done all of that prior to this and they don't change, they're not willing to change, then, you know, see you later. I don't need to deal with that in my life. It's a struggle enough in life to deal with my own thoughts and feelings and my spiritual path. So there's so many aspects of this conversation, right? We could go on for days. So point being is that the situation when trying to understand whether to rekindle that friendship has to be that all aspects are looked at, including yours, and figuring out, should I approach, should I make an effort, right? I'm not saying don't make an effort, but I am saying that if you've done everything that I've said prior to this, and you've been through all of that, and it's a similar situation, there is going to be some kind of pattern that I would say 90% it ends up not what you would hope it ends up, because the other person reverts back to their program. There is only 10% in this world who will be strong enough to take a look at their actions and see that their actions caused pain and suffering. Most 90% will fight back and use ammunition to say, no, it's your fault. It's not my fault. It's your fault. And you're this and you're that, right? A stronger person will look at themselves and say, wow, yeah, and work on that and work on it. Very few. 10% is giving you a false notion. It isn't. It's less than that. It sounds awful, but it's only like 1%. It's 1%. Most people are so stuck in their program that it's impossible. They say even spiritual people, and even I have to work on myself when I don't see myself reacting as like, well, that's not spiritual. Why have you just done that? Okay, I have to look at myself and then check in on myself and delete, get rid of that program, and then start again. Very hard for most people, and I'm not insulting anybody saying you're weak. It's not weak. It's just hard for people to do that. They say you can't teach old dog new tricks. Well, I learned a new trick a couple of weeks ago. I saw what I was and what I need to change and do, and I did. And I will do that till my last breath. I ain't perfect. I never will be. So I don't judge people by saying, you're this and you're that. I don't do that. I do, however, see very clearly how people behave. And I look at that behavior and I make a judgment whether I want that person in my life because of the way their energy is, To me, there's only one true unconditional love, and that's a dog. Everybody else has their own needs and wants that need to be filled, and normally they don't take responsibility and try and find it themselves, so they blame others and expect it from others. Sorry, but it sounds awful, but it's very true. If you're somebody who works hard to create and yeah, if you work hard and create, you don't need anything. You don't want anything because you are the creator of your life. Those that are weaker, those that don't work hard, those that expect from other people and take from other people quite happily, but never actually give to anybody, they're very much in that energy of fear, worry, and need. And they're always wanting money, or they're always needing money, or they're always needing collateral. They want houses. They want to feel like, I need all of this. That's their fear from childhood, their issues. That never changes. So for somebody like me, I work to create what I need to create. I don't worry. I don't fear about money. I don't fear about anything. I just get on with it. And I work every day. As long as I've got my health, I keep working one step after another. So looking at that understanding, when you look at somebody else, you've got to ask yourself, what do they want from me? Is it really true friendship? Even if it's family, is this really friendship? Or is this, I know I can always come to you if I need your help? Well, that's not friendship. That's one-sided. That doesn't make any sense. Friendship should be balanced of, I love you for who you are and you love me for who I am, flaws and all. That's what friendship is. If I don't see you in a year or 2 years and I see you again and I give you a hug and we start again as if it was like yesterday, that's friendship. If you need and you want, and if you see somebody getting more successful, if you see somebody wanting to move and leave and expand themselves, the friend should always be so happy for you. If they're not, then it's because they fear, they need, and they want. That's not friendship. And family is not exempt. I'm sorry, but this idea of blood is thicker than water, I'm sorry, guys, I don't believe that. I don't believe it at all. I treat my friends the same as I treat my family, right? So if they're kind to me, I'm kind to them. I will treat you exactly the same as my family. There is no difference, because I don't see that blood is thicker than water. I don't see any of it, because I've seen so many members of family so different that, whoa, this is a challenge. So check in on yourself and ask yourself, if you are always thinking about a relationship that's fallen apart and you're thinking about it and time's ticking all the time, you need to ask yourself, why? Have you come to terms with that breakup? You won't if you're always thinking about it. You haven't come to full terms with it. Coming to full terms with it is that I love them, I know who they are, and I give them all my love whenever I think about them. I wish them well every day whenever I think about them. But I've come to accept that if we were meant to be together in a relationship, which friendship, partnership, family, we would be friendship to this day. And if we're not, it's got nothing to do with anything else other than the bigger picture, that I have to understand that certain friendships are not meant to be, and I accept them and I become stronger and move forward. So how do you become stronger? You understand the relationship. You understand what the relationship is. You look at yourself and you look at the person that you were talking about, and we look at why these aspects have happened, what made this happen. And we're not looking at it as blame. We're not looking at it as brownie points. He did this to me. No, we're looking at everything. What could I, like, I'll give you a great example, right? Me and my first wife, we had a great relationship for so many years, 7 years, right? Everybody looked at us and said, you two are like two peas in a pod. We worked together. We had a hairdressing salon. Everything was brilliant. We moved into a house. Now, the house was haunted and it had a ghost that separated everybody who moved into that house for many years. So, coincidentally, we moved into that house. The bigger picture, maybe we weren't meant to be together. And now looking back, absolutely. However, at the time, it was heartbreaking. So we ended up splitting up. I ended up leaving. And then what I did at that particular point, and I wasn't spiritual, I sat down and I thought to myself, what did I do in that relationship that made it fail? Right? I did. I like, come on, Mark, the relationships don't split up just like that. Yes, the ghost had something to do with it, that the trapped spirit had something to do with it. For sure it did. But no, there's something else. I've come here to experience this, right? Or else, why has it happened? Because it's happened. So forget about mourning, forget about trying to kill yourself, forget about all that. What are you going to do about it, Mark? What are you going to do to make the change? So one of the changes were, and I meant this and I didn't want to be with anybody else, but I thought, how can I be a better person so that if I meet somebody else, I don't make the mistakes that I made with my first wife? Now, I'm not just talking about my wife. I'm talking to you to think about this, about how your relationships are with the person that you've said goodbye to. So these things need to be looked at. Did I do terrible things? Did I do things that upset them? You look at all of the aspects about yourself. And by doing that, you take responsibility. And taking responsibility, again, is only 1% of the world that takes responsibility. I looked at myself and I was willing to ask myself, just like Michael Jackson said, the man in the mirror, it starts with the man in the mirror. So I looked at myself, and that was the start of my healing process to my relationship that split up. But that process works so well when you have friendships that fall apart, or family that do something to upset you, or you split up for whatever reason with your family and your friends and your partnerships. Looking at yourself to better yourself and to grow in a spiritual awareness to see how you are and what triggers you and what triggers other people is something very special. The point being is, when you've conquered that bit of self-awareness, you actually move forward in the healing process of the relationship that upsets you every day that you're no longer in, no matter what situation it was. So this is something really brilliant to do. So once you've looked at yourself and you've realized, yeah, there's some things I could have done differently. There's, blah, blah, blah. Or actually, I actually didn't do anything. It was a random thing that happened. And like, where did that come from? Literally, I haven't even seen them for months or weeks. And then I've heard some terrible things. What did I do? Didn't do anything. You didn't do anything. Okay, because you're looking at yourself. You're asking yourself, because you're open enough to say, oh my God, I didn't realize. So you're looking for things. Most people don't, only 1%. Once you've delved deep into that, once you've deep dived that and spent time looking at that, being honest with yourself and asking your consciousness, connecting to your consciousness, saying, please, what did I do that caused this? You normally find that this then turns into what I call, I don't like to call it the soul contract, but It is something that we come to learn and experience. So this is part of my journey. This is what I asked for. This is what I need to heal. So I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's negative. I'm not saying it's karma. I'm just saying this is an experience and I'm going to now look at it that way. So how do I grow? How do I get over this? How do I conquer it? How do I understand this experience? All of these things are all related. So once I get into that field, that energy, that focus, then I can move forward. So now I look at the person that I'm talking about, somebody else who's upset me, like you're talking about them now. So I now start to look at them and see what is it within them that I saw that I thought, wow, you know, some of your actions are awful, not just to me, but to everybody else. I noticed them actions. So it's no different. Their actions to somebody else is going to be no different to their actions to you, because it's not about the person, even though they say it is. It's about their actions. That's who they are at that moment. So don't be surprised that if somebody's awful to you on the internet, they're going to be awful to everybody else. It's not just you. It's never personal. So once you understand that, then it's not personal. They do it to everybody. Wow. Okay. So it's not me. Okay. So I can let go of that. That's good. So it's not about me. That's nice. I'm glad. So I'm now over that. So I look at how they behave and I ask, do I actually want that in my life? If they're going to, if it means that I go back to them and rekindle this relationship, stop a minute, close my eyes, see them, smile, hug them, but now they turn to the bottle again, or they turn to alcohol or whatever it is, they turn to medication, they turn to bad thoughts again, they turn to old patterns again, and we see them doing the same thing again. Shit, that's an awful feeling. They didn't grow at all. They're exactly the same as they are every day. What an awful feeling. Why did I even bother? So the feeling of you wanting to rekindle a flame is because you're a kind, caring, loving person and you don't want to upset anybody. You want everybody to be happy, but not everybody's like you. And the fact that you're thinking that shows you that you're a beautiful person. So once you've got that out of the way, you realize that you're not bitter, you're not angry, you're not twisted, you're not jealous, you're not fearful, you're not carrying any hate. That's really good. Now I can move forward from that as well. So you're breaking down all of the thoughts and feelings that you have, which you can actually say, okay, now I get that. And it's not because of any bad reason that I'm thinking it, or, for that I want anything, or, it's all about love, and it's all about wanting the world to be a better place. And you want everybody to be happy. Like you did in the playground at school. When you saw people fighting, it broke your heart. It was awful. It's traumatic. And when somebody wants to fight you, you don't want to fight anybody. How many people have you ever said that you want to have a fight with? I want to fight you. Like, I've never said that. I don't want to fight anybody. I had to fight because they made me fight. But I was crying when I was fighting. Even if I won the fight, I'd still be crying. I don't want to fight. So we don't want to fight. It's not in our energy. It's not in our nature. Yes, we protect, and I will protect anybody, and I will fight to protect somebody, a child, a dog. I'll fight and protect them all day long because I'm a warrior that way. But I am not a bully. I am not deceitful. I am not a dirty somebody who stands on you and walks over you like a boss does. None of those things. None. If you are nice to me and you are kind and you are caring, you'll get somebody kind and caring back. If you take the piss out of me, then you're going to lose this friendship, and I'm going to say goodbye. No matter what you say, goodbye. You've lost it. So I'm not a fool and I'm not weak, but I'm also trying to look after my health and well-being. And the weight so many family members carry because of their family or their past relationships or their children, that they carry the burden of, not healthy. And it makes you sick, and that sickness can turn into cancer. Not good. Not good. So the final part is the acceptance. Now that you've looked at all aspects like we just have done, we come to the final part. That is, if I never see them again, will it hurt? Will it cause pain and suffering? If it does, then you haven't actually healed by way of how I've just explained. Coming to terms with everything. So the relationship I had with somebody that is no longer in my life now for 10 years or 15, I don't look at that relationship as when we fell out. I look at our relationship as what we had together up to the point of falling out, not the falling out. That bit is irrelevant. The bit that we had together, and I look at the good parts, is what I'll always remember. So I won't remember the bad parts. I'll remember the good parts. I'll remember all the things that make me happy about that relationship. And yes, of course, we would wish that that would be forever, but it wasn't, and it didn't happen. And we accept it because people do things that maybe they shouldn't have done. And if they're not willing to come back and move forward in a way of, I'm sorry, or they don't even need to say sorry. They just ring you up and say, is it okay, we can have a coffee, just a chat. And now you're starting to hear that that person really, really realizes that what they did was stupid. Most of the time they won't. They'll continue either on their drugs or drinking and get worse and worse. Very few actually do change, 1%. So I would rather remember my dad as how I want to remember him. I was at the funeral, but I would not be at his bedside because I know how he would treat me. I know how he treated me throughout his life, and I know how he mocked and ridiculed and laughed. And just, he was a difficult man. But I came to terms with that's the way he is. But I am not going to hurt myself by allowing that to happen. It's like my son. If my son said to me, Dad, if you keep doing this, I'm not going to see you. I'm not going to see you again. What? Why would you do this to me? And I'm like, you're right. You shouldn't. You shouldn't see me again if I do that. It's true, right? If I'm going to be a knob, a tool, then you're totally in your rights not to see me again, son. But I am so thankful that you told me these things, and now I can, well, like Jesus, I'm turning into my dad. A lot of us. I'll say, oh, I'm not like my mum. You're exactly like your mum. Or like I was speaking to a lady the other day, and she was telling me about a mum, and I'm like, oh my God, that just sounds like you. It's like, just sounds like you. But we don't see it. But I have spent years listening to people and seeing who they truly are when they speak. And I'm like, when they're talking to me, I'm like, no, that's you, right? So I can see what they can't see. And now I can see it in myself because I can see it in others. It was a gift. So I'm thankful that the strength of my son was able to say what he said, so I could go down and really, I am sorry, son. I now you've said it, I've realized that you're right. And I didn't even realize I was doing it. And partly was a joke and partly was, I don't know. Where's this come from? Why am I doing that? I absolutely love and respect my son. Totally. So where's this coming from? Checked in. My dad. My mum never was like that. My mum was lovely and kind and caring. Never a bad word out of her mouth. My dad, not so much. Sarcastic, talks behind people's back, prejudiced. But then he would let a lodger from Africa live there. And I'm like, I thought you were prejudiced, Dad. Oh, shut up. Talking about Asians. And I'm like, why are you talking about Asians? My best friends are Asians. What's wrong with it? What are you talking about? Oh, shut up. Right? So that's my dad. I've got a little bit in that, like, I don't know. Maybe it's genes. Maybe it's programming from my dad. I often say that, no matter how hard you try to bring your child up to be better than you, they mimic you. So I mimicked my dad. But to recognize it is a beautiful thing. And I do check in on myself, and I do try and look at myself. Like sometimes I get aggressive, I get angry, and some people say, oh, Mark, you're terrible. I can't listen to you anymore. And I'm like, oh, shit, I'm turning into my dad. But I know my dad was passionate. And sometimes he was amazing. Sometimes he said some amazing things and blew me away. And then sometimes he was just drunk and a jerk. So I understood my dad. I got to understand him that he was in World War II. He was a second lieutenant. He was in charge of 100 tanks. If you're in a tank, you're going to be doing some damage to a lot of people. He got caught twice and escaped death camps. That's going to mess you up bad. You don't escape a camps. Well, if you do, you do. If you don't, you get shot. So that guy must have ended up with a lot of baggage. And to try and clear that baggage of the amount of lives he must have taken, he turned to drink. And he was a difficult man. He was a very difficult man. He was a hard worker, abusive, but got up every morning and went to work. I'm like that. I get up to work every morning, no matter what. I'm up every morning. So is my son. So there's something in that those genes as well, that. But the fact is that I come to terms with my dad at one point where I realized that, you know what? I love my dad for who he is. It's not about forgiveness. It's about knowing who he is and saying, I don't forgive what my dad did all my life. I don't forgive that. But that's okay, because I forgive my dad for who he is. I don't forgive the actions, but I forgive my dad. I just forgive him. Like, I forgive you. Why? Because that's who you are. You can't change. You're never going to change. And I was insisting, needing, wanting him to change every day. I would shower him with presents and be nice and say nice things and go and visit him with my children. And he was still a jerk. So one point being, and I mentioned this before to some of you, I remember buying a brand new settee and it cost a lot of money. I remember it was £800. This is like 30 years ago. Got to the house, got his old suite, which was falling to bits, literally falling to bits. Put it in the van, brought the new suite for him. He looked at it when he got back home, because I was surprising him. And he says, "What is this?" And I said, "It's a brand new suite, Dad." "I don't want this suite. Take it out. Where is my old suite?" And it was at that point that I got into my car, into my van, and I banged my head against the wheel. And I started laughing. I didn't cry. I didn't feel pain. I just started laughing because the penny dropped. I realized that my dad would never change. So accept him for who he is. So the moment I accepted him for who he was the moment I could move forward. And after that day, I never had to go and see him to have his abuse and his attack on me every day. I didn't need to, because I didn't need to ask for his approval. I didn't need to get his approval. I didn't need him to say, "Hey, Marek, I am proud of you." Like I say to my son every day whenever I see him, I'm proud of him. And I tell him, like my daughter, I'm proud of my daughter. And I tell him I love them all the time. I don't need that from my dad at that point, because I know who he is, because he can't say it. But it doesn't mean he didn't love me. Of course he loved me, but I didn't need to put up with that. So many people put up with relationships. I'm not just talking about dads and mums. I'm talking about everybody. You don't need to put up with that. And if people can't change, then you have to make the decision. Do you want to go through that pain and suffering all your life by listening to that and swallowing it and not saying anything? It's not good for you. It's not healthy for you. And do you know what? Even if you say it ain't going to make a difference. They're still going to be the same, because most people will not change. They will not look at themselves. They're 1%, only 1% of the 8 billion, if you believe in that. But 1%. It's probably less than that. But the point being is, I accept my relationships, whether they are close or whether they are no longer relationships. I still love them. And no matter what happens to them, I know I've come to terms with that. And if they pass away, I'll be there at the funeral. I'll say I love them with all my heart. But everybody else will say, "Well, you're a two-faced git, aren't you? Because you never actually saw him and you never went to see him." No, but I'd loved him, and I wasn't willing to put up with the suffering of being a punching bag, or for their alcoholism or their drug issue or their weaknesses. Not willing to do that. I don't care whether you're blood or you're not. If my son treated me bad, I'd say, you know what, son, I can't deal with this. See you later. And if he doesn't look at himself and say, you know what, you're right, and I need to change, and okay, so this is how it should be. It's called a mutual respect, but it's also a respect for yourself, not ego, not pride, but looking at yourself and not saying, well, what about you? What about you? You did this and you did that. Like, no, shut up, child. Wake, sit down. Stop being a child. Stop, revert back to your childhood behavior, like at school, like you're right or you're wrong. There's no right and wrong. This isn't about right and wrong. So that's how I see it. Sounds like Lily. Oh, I thought it was. I thought I recognized who it was. That's Lily. That's my dog, walking my partner. And I recognized the bark of my dog. Isn't that amazing? I didn't say, that's Lily. You can literally hear the sound, the sound of your doggy or cat. It's incredible, eh? Anyway, besides that, so there you go. Story of a healer that's read for many people, that's acknowledged people that went back to rekindle friendships. If friendships are meant to be rekindled, they will be. It doesn't take effort. It should just flow and it should be natural. We should be open to looking at rekindling, but we shouldn't force any rekindling. If you have looked at yourself and you've thought, you know what, this is my issue, I've made a mistake here, then it should be then up to you to either write a letter, to send a message and say, I've looked at myself. I've finally looked at myself and realized that maybe I need to work on myself. And the first thing I need to do is apologize. And it's not like I'm asking for the friendship, but I am wanting you to know that I recognize what part I played in this situation. And I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just telling you that I am working on myself to be a better person, right? And that's a good start, and that's the way forward. So if somebody that I've fallen out with because I can't deal with it, if they sent me that message and I read it, okay, this is a start, and now I would start to ponder on it and think about it, and slowly but surely take my time, not rush into it. And just let things be and see how things go. And anyway, that's it. That's kind of like, I might not have hit all the points, because damn, is it hard to hit all the points, and the paths that we could go down are thousands. I just want you to know that if you are somebody who is in a place right now that is a dad and you don't see your children and it's their fault and so on, you know, you could call it bad luck. You could say it could have been you. It could be just fate, in the sense of this is how it was meant to be. But when all said and done, life is how it is. And each of us go through different scenarios, whether we're 10 or 12 when I lost my mum of cancer, whether it's 38 and I leave England and move to Spain, whether my first wife left me when I was in my 20s. There's always situations, always. But the truth to life and the balance of happiness and peace and joy is to look at yourself and work on yourself. That's the answer to everything. Work on yourself every day and be the better soul in the way of seeing your actions, your reactions, how you might have a bit of your mum and dad in you, what you say, because sometimes people don't even want to be with you because of your conversation. Most people won't even look at that. I'm perfect, I'm fine, I'm lovely, I'm brilliant, I'm kind to everybody. Actually, you don't actually see your faults. Your faults is that everything's down, everything's going wrong, everything's bad, and I can't cope with that, right? It's hard to say that to somebody, but you know, they should look at themselves and ask themselves, what is it within me? And so many people who claim to be on a spiritual path never heal themselves because they're not actually looking to heal themselves. They're actually looking for a way out. They're actually looking for answers that don't actually lead them to the path of looking at themselves. And that's in the spiritual world. This is food for thought tonight. I'm wishing you a lovely evening. Thank you for joining me for this 1 hour. I hope some of these things might make you think a little bit. I hope I haven't upset you in any way. We're all on a path of learning. We all make mistakes. We are all here to experience and to grow. And thus, look in your mirror and check in on yourself every now and again. If something triggers you, look at why. If you start to feel depressed, ask yourself what situation made you feel depressed. Always check in on yourself and your feelings and your actions. And thus, you will be the master of your life if you are truthful to yourself. Have a great evening, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Take care. And I don't know if I can switch this off. Last time I tried switching this off, it didn't switch off. So fingers crossed. If it doesn't switch off, then I'm going to have to take this video off. I have to go into the videos and delete it. So cross your fingers and hope that when I press end stream, it will end and upload to Facebook. Right? You ready? Cross your fingers. 3, 2, 1, end stream.